Well, like he said, well, first of all, I have to tell you, I'm so sorry to hurt your ears. I am 50 years old, and I've never had laryngitis in my life. So today's my day, I guess. So I apologize, but I have Denise on standby over here in case it gets too bad. But he's right about what he said about the commissioner. The commissioner tells us that he will not be getting a Christmas card from the feds this year. They are mad at him, but he doesn't care. He's going to keep on doing what's right for kids. But that was a wonderful analogy you used, Dr. Barnett, because we know that all of those animals aren't going to climb that tree in the same way. That's exactly what the commissioner is saying. We need to get away from accountability coming from this one test that we take in the spring. So I apologize to you if you already know everything there is to know about through course. What I'm finding out in conversations, some people know a lot about it. Some people, they say, what are you talking about? What does that mean? So we're going to talk about that and what's on the horizon for Kentucky. So one lady came in here and she said, I want you to tell us everything so we'll know what the future is for assessment. That would be a great thing, but we can't do that. My question to the commissioner was that question, and he too said, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. So big things coming. Matter of fact, everything that's going on right now, around the end of November, the commissioner wants the public to take a really good look. So this will be your big chance to really let him know. And if you've been following his town hall meetings and that kind of thing, he really, really, really wants to listen to what educators are saying. So we'll be sure to do that. Okay, so the big question is, what do our students need to know? And more importantly, too, what should they be able to do in order to be successful? You all will be in agreement with me that taking a test at the end of the year, that's not enough. It doesn't really tell us, my son may have an apprentice in one subject area. He may have a proficient in the other subject area. He may have a distinguished in the other subject area. But what does that really mean? He gets a plaque, or he's recognized this way or that way, but that's really it. So what do our students really need to be able to do in order to show that they are successful? And so we get into what Dr. Barnett was mentioning today. Students have to show competency. They have to show that they're competent. It's one thing to know the standards, but what are you doing with them? So if we look at the word competency, it's the student's ability to transfer content and skill in and across content areas, not just that particular one, but across all content areas. And it requires that a student demonstrate that learning by actually applying it. Now, some of you that are in here that's older like me, you went through learning about Bloom's taxonomy and that sort of thing. Well, this isn't just the lower levels of regurgitating knowledge. This is actually applying the knowledge, transferring the knowledge, and that's the kind of testing system that the commissioner wants to have in place. So the way that Rose Colby, and she has a book called Off the Clock. I don't know how many of you know Thomas Guskey. He's our big guy on competency learning and mastery learning here in Kentucky. If you study Rose Colby, she's the guru, the Thomas Guskey of Vermont. So you really might want to look at her book, Off the Clock. She works hand in hand with Dr. Guskey, actually. So Rose Colby says that the standards are the what. The what is being taught. But the competency is the why and the how. So in other words, those kids taking that up to the next level, doing the next thing to show they really, really, really are competent. And so with that comes a new language of learning. So we get this competency and this proficiency, which we think about those two words, and it reminds us of being an expert, acquiring that specific skill, having the knowledge and the capacity. And then also with these new science standards and with what's coming out with the through course task, you got to think about the competencies as the big ideas. I apologize for my voice, I'm real sorry. The big ideas, and even the science teachers out there, they're calling it, kids have to be able to show that they understand a phenomena, not just about weather, or not just about the sun and the moon, but the phenomena of changes, that sort of thing. So it's even, the big idea, you're going to start hearing words like phenomena in the assessment world. And so what is the goal of competency-based education? And I really like this slide, because if you really think about it, this is truly, truly, truly what we want. Competency-based education's underlying premise is this, is that what students know and can do is more important than how they learned it and how long it took them to learn it. And that's so true, because we get so caught up in teaching it a certain way, or they only have one chance to show that they really, really, really understood. It doesn't matter that, if I were to ask every one of you in here, it may have taken Jeff Cochran one time to pass his driver's test, but it could have taken Sean Castle 3 times. They both, one time? Just one time? Well, let's just say 3. They both were able to drive up here very successfully today. And that's the same way it is with students. It may take 6 kids in your class a little bit longer, but does that mean they didn't get it? And we as teachers, and you young teachers in here, you have to make sure you give them the time that they need. And that's what the commissioner is saying too. They might not have gotten it the first time, but you give them that time. And then if they can show you 2 weeks later that they got that they've mastered it, then that's okay. They should get that good score too. And we need to remember that. Okay, I like this slide here because it shows Kentucky in the green. And this tells us that Kentucky is one of the developing states on competency. And we hear more and more and more all the time about the researchers out there, such as Thomas Guskey and the gurus. We've all studied Rick Stiggins. We've all studied Carolyn Chapman. And they all say that we've got to give kids the time. We've got to give them the resources they need. We've got to give them the time that they need. And I do know that gets hard when you have a classroom of 28 kids. But we all know as educators, those 28 kids do not learn the same way or the same time. And I like this because Guskey talks about this a whole lot. And if you look at that quote, simply going through the motions of school and just getting by with a C or a D grade and moving, it's not good enough anymore, because we really, really, really want to know, are the students really competent at what they're doing? And think about it, we don't want the doctor operating on us that barely passed with D's. We want somebody that's truly, truly, truly competent and can get the job done with success. And so this leads us to what the commissioner is really wanting assessment to start looking like. And it's going to begin in the area of science with the through course task. Do not go out and call them through course exams, because he clearly says the through course tasks are not to be a part of accountability. It's to really gauge exactly where the students are, and it is also to gauge your teaching style. Do I need to change what I'm doing in any way? Do I need to change the resources that I'm using to get them to this process of understanding and truly being competent? And so there's 3 dimensions of this through course task and of the whole understanding the science standards. And the way it was explained to me is, if you look at a rope and it's 3 cords that are wrapped together, woven together. So imagine those 3 cords of that rope being these 3 bullets: the science practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and then the core ideas. You have to have all 3 of those working together. So in my simple mind, I make that to be this: you can't just be teaching the standards. They have to be able to apply. They have to be able to show that they understand through practices, through application. And cross-cutting concepts. One thing the commissioners say to you, if you hear him talk to you, if he were here right now in this room for an hour talking about science, he would probably say to you at least 3 times, you do not wait until 4th grade to start teaching science with these new standards, because there's so many cross-cutting concepts all throughout. And if you truly, truly, truly show an understanding of these phenomena that he's talking about, it has to start in kindergarten. So keep that in mind, and I'm sure you guys have already heard that. And so all 3 of these dimensions have to be woven and integrated together, again, like that image of a rope. And then what kind of assessment model could be used for this kind of 3-dimensional system? Would it really be the science test that we give right now? No, it would not. It would not. And so that last bullet, a summative assessment, would certainly not measure this kind of thing, to the point that you science teachers in here, you gave a portion of the science test last spring. Didn't even count. This year, the commissioner says there won't be a science test on there yet. So, but there will be in the future. What he does say is this, that science assessment, science accountability, it will be broken down into these 3 areas. There will be classroom embedded scenarios. There will be the through course task, and then there will be a summative, but it won't be, it's not ready yet. But I'll tell you what will happen here in just a few minutes. But the classroom embedded activities and strategies and formative assessments that you give, and the through course task that you give, those will be all a part of the formative part, okay? Now, if all of you have watched the video that the commissioner and Karen Kidwell showed us, it was a 17-minute video. He was saying that teachers will create these through course tasks, but he's changed that now. The state has teachers all across Kentucky, and they are working on the through course task right now, as teachers are also working on summative questions for the science test right now, for the summative test. And so sometime this year, anytime between November and March, that will be the through course task window. We can't call it testing window, and I almost did. It's not a testing window. And you will choose from a listing of a variety of through course tasks to present to your students. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And then the summative will still happen at the end of the year. But for this school year, it won't be the same time as the regular assessment. It will be in March, and it will be a pilot. The 4th grade students, the 7th grade students, and the 11th grade students. And then he also goes on to say, also some 9th grade students and some 10th grade. I don't know who those 9th and 10th grade are. It just says some at this point. And so if we go back to our through course task, they are specifically designed to get the evidence of students' competency from looking at the practices, and that they truly have a clear understanding of those cross-cutting concepts. Now, the through course task itself is facilitated with students and the teacher. And so the teacher is setting up these tasks, and she creates a very good, positive learning climate. It's not, okay, let's stop everything. We've got to do this task. The commissioner is making us do this. He says, be sure to put a positive spin on it. And he keeps saying it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be a fun time. And I want to say to him, your fun might be different than my fun, because it's just a little scary to me. But then all of these tasks will all revolve around that science phenomena that I was telling you about. And so students, and a task, it may be an individual task that an individual student does. It might be a small group. It might be 2 kids working together. That will be determined by you as the teacher. And it might even, when the tasks come available, it might even tell you, I don't know, that this is one you might want to do with a small group. I don't know that yet. Okay, so with this through course task process, there's 3 parts to it. And it's a collaborative process. But he wants us to be sure that step 1 and step 3 needs to be done in collaboration with other science teachers within the PLCs. Because when you're planning for task facilitation, you need to be talking about that with others. And then in step 2, that would be what you're doing, what you're asking your kids to do. And so that would be the individual, more the individual part, you and your kids. But then the post-task analysis, that would be when you're getting back together in your PLCs and you're talking about how did the kids do. And you're laying all of their tasks out. And you're even lining them up by, these are the ones that had a clear understanding. They really got this. These are the ones that did, well, they did pretty good. These are the ones, man, oh, they just didn't seem to get that phenomena. They just didn't seem to understand. Okay? Then you got to take it a step further. Why did these get it? Why did these certain ones get it? What did I not do? Or what did the kids, were they not able to do? Those that didn't understand. So you need to be thinking about that. What do I, as the teacher, need to change? That's the purpose of the through course task. What do I need to change, or what do I need to help the students understand a little bit better? Was it because they're more of an auditory learner and I did too much of it another way? Was it because I did too much hands-on and they're more, you got to think about why. So that's where you really need what the DeFores talk about in the purpose of a PLC, really using the PLCs in the right way. And so, with this new science test plan, here's the only things that I can tell you for sure. Right now, there are science teachers out there that have been charged with developing some items. They started in the summer. Chris Bentley tells me they've pretty much wrapped a lot of that up now. So there are science questions out there, the summative questions, that have been designed, ready. But I will tell you this, I'm an assessment coordinator, and I work very closely with the accountability system at the State Department. I do know for a fact that they have not put out an RFP for any testing company to create the test using these test items yet. So we do have the test items, but we don't have, they're not at that point now. We're still under contract with Pearson, with K-Prep. And so I can also tell you that the items were developed for the 4th grade, the 7th grade, and high school. Okay? And then this summative assessment, this pilot, will be given in March, this March. And so again, I've already told you the grade levels. Grade 11, some 9 and 10. Every single school will be involved. Do you think pilot, sometimes they just pick a few schools? No, this will be every one of our schools. But no student performance levels will be generated. So I think it's just a time to tell them, to let them know, to let the commissioner know how students are doing. And then it will also affect the alternate assessments for the 16-17 year. So at the very bottom, I want you to know that the K-Prep, the science test, and with the alternate K-Prep, it will not be a part of the 16-17 accountability. So after he told us all of this at our assessment meeting, then he asked for questions. So my question to him was, you tell us all of this, you tell us to be positive, but how about my teachers are wanting to know about this school year, 16-17. Are we still going to see at the elementary level achievement at 33%, growth at 33%, gap at 33%, that novice reduction target, all of that? And he said, I can't say that for sure. But what he can't say is we will be giving the K-Prep exam. We will be giving the ELA part. We will be giving the math part, the social studies, and the writing. You will be giving those EOCs at the high school level one more year. Program reviews, you've been through the regional trainings on program reviews. There's big changes, but right now it still does count 23%. Will it in the future? I don't know. I don't think it will, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. That's just kind of what my thoughts are. So that's the best I can tell you right there. Sorry. Why don't you wrap this up for us? I really think they want to hear me talk a little bit more.
I don't know if misery loves company or not, but I do quite a bit of work for Advanced Ed, and was in about 6 or 8 states last year, and states all over the country, the same thing is happening. The old assessments are being done away with, or at least put on hold and modified. Now, we're told that we want a world-class education system, and we often see and often hear in the news where we stack up as far as the rest of the world is concerned, and they often use the PISA, P-I-S-A, they often use the PISA test to measure where we are in the world. And I just looked last night at the latest PISA results, and we've always heard about Finland. Well, Finland's now ranked number 8. They're still in the top 10. Canada's number 10. South Korea is 4th or 5th, I think, but number 1 is Taiwan. But if you think about the cultures of those places, Canada, of course, would probably be closest to us as far as the kind of life that most families have. But so many of these other places are so much different than we are here in the United States. But to try to compare our assessment system or our schools with Taiwan, for example, I have 2 former students who are kind of like assistant principals there. They just went back in July. They were in our doctoral program. And to give you an example that's somewhat different, when they do their teacher evaluations, they can't go in the classroom. Their evaluations have to be done from the hallway. And once a teacher gets hired, they're automatically tenured. Okay, and so it's almost impossible to get rid of them. So I'm going to be curious to talk with these people. But as Shauna said, we're in an interesting time. We may or may not learn from what is happening in other states, but we know one of the things that I've always said, and this will be the last thing that I have to say, unless you have some questions, is that we have really talented people, and you work with really talented people, and I think each of you probably has a rare talent. And so we know what the right thing to do with kids. And so I think that for too long we've let the tail wag the dog. We've let the accountability system determine what we do with kids and for kids, rather than doing the right things. And I'm not saying that we've always done the wrong things before, but we've been so cognizant of the accountability and assessment system that we've let it determine how we interact with students and how we present our lessons and what we do with kids. If we do the right things, in Finland that is often talked about, they hardly ever talk about the assessment system. They use portfolios primarily to measure student growth, and so it's a cumulative collection of formative assessments, and they do have a summative at the end that is verified by their peers in another school. But the focus is not on assessment. The focus is on students and doing the right thing for students. And I think, if we can do that, and, I know Pollyanna, my glasses are not that rose-colored, but we focus on students, and I truly believe that the accountability will take care of itself.